much. I am super excited to be here. And I know that I am talking to the choir of all the experts in architecture. However, I am that my bread and butter is change and transformation. A little bit about me. So I've been in the change and transformation space for 25 years. I work with individuals, leaders, and organizations to help them with three things: mastery when it comes to change and transformation, what good looks like, and navigate the complex landscape to make sure that we achieve the outcome. The second is growth, so growing your leadership capabilities and making sure that you are sharpening your thought leadership. And the third is positioning, how you want to be known in the market and accelerate your career progression as a leader in the change and transformation space. That's a little bit about me. I've recently launched my community and my program called People of Transformation. Feel free to look it up. All right, now, what am I here to say? Preaching to the choir about architecture. I'm here to talk about orchestrating architecture to power change and transformation. And the things that I want to focus on today are what is architecture? And that's from somebody who's coming at it from a change and transformation perspective and how I make sense out of it. What are the mindset shifts that help me use architecture effectively to power change and transformation programs? Looking at the 30,000-foot view of what that looks like, how kind of the blend in between change and transformation architecture, looking a little bit deeper into the lenses of transformation, and then I'll talk about a practical example of orchestrating architecture for in the context of change and transformation program from one of my transformation programs that I've done back in the days, which was the World Cup. All right, so what is it? For me, architecture, I looked up what is the definition of architecture. And I found these two interesting definitions. One is from the construction business, where we're all very aware of all the blueprints of when you're building your house or a building or anything in the city or anything like that. And another from TOGAF that talks about enterprise architecture. So the first one was architecture is the art and technique of designing and building with the aim of reaching the final outcome. And the second definition was a formal description of a system or a detailed system plan at the component level to guide its implementation. Pretty much sure that you can figure out which was the enterprise architecture one. I asked people in the light of when they hear the word architecture in the corporate setup and in the change and transformation, what comes to mind? One word that comes to mind when we're talking architecture. And they've mentioned a few things, and these are the 5 words that I heard. It is solution, structure, visuals, digital, and systems. And that pretty much aligns from somebody who's looking at it from the outside, like myself and the people I asked. However, using architecture in the context of transformation, which is a significant change in the organization and you're changing the status quo, I find that, to me, the shifts that help me see architecture for what it truly is and how can I harness that amazing power that architecture brings is those 3 shifts. 1, to me, architecture is the art and technique. Yes, there is a big element of art that goes with architecture, same with transformation. But it's not just to build and design or design and build. It's also to understand, to describe, to visualize, to connect, to clarify, to design, to guide, and to build an organization and its systems. And when I say systems here, I don't mean just technology systems. I mean any system from a system thinking point of view, any system that the organization had a sequence of events, a tasks that get us to the final outcome. The second shift, and this would be particularly really important in the architecture community, I do not believe that architecture belongs in or can be confined in the boundaries of a project. We don't just start talking about architecture when there is a project. It's probably too late by then. To me, architecture is a BAU. It's a function. It's something that should exist all the time. It's kind of like this radar that keeps scanning the environment, looking for what has changed, what connections can we make, what's happening here, continuously building that map of the organization. And that led me to number 3. The way I see it, architecture helps identify the problem, understand it, make sense of it, see it from multiple angles or layers, provide options, formalize a solution. And notice when I started talking about solutions, all these things happen before we actually talk about a solution. Check the integrity of that solution, and now the important aspect as well, while building a knowledge base that helps accelerate decision-making and navigate complexity. To me, that's the holy grail of what architecture is to be used to power change and transformation. To make sense of it, I see it, I'm quite a visual person, so I like to see things in visuals. The way I see it, architecture is this similar to X-ray. It's an X-ray view of a particular part or a layer in the business in order to build a full map of its ecosystem. It's like going into looking at the brain, then there's that facial muscles, and then taking it a step further. What's the layer beneath that? And I'm not a doctor, by the way. I'm just trying to articulate that in a way that I see it as somebody from not the medical side of things. What are all the arteries and the vessels? What are the nerves? And then talking about the structure of the vessels in the brain. What about the firing of all the neurons that's happening? What about the layers that comes up from MRI? What about the bones? The different parts of the brain responsible for different cognitive abilities within for us. That to me is architecture. It's having this map of multiple layers, of multiple angles to create a full understanding and a comprehensive map of that ecosystem. But we're not talking about the brain here because we're not doctors. We're talking about the organization. In that sense, there's so many architectures out there, so many, and we could use that to power change and transformation. I'm not just talking about the traditional TOGAF enterprise architecture types of architecture. Of course, there's data, technology, and we can double-click technology. There are systems and infrastructure and cybersecurity and all of that. But there's also market architecture, decision-making. How do we make decisions in an organization? Culture. What are the norms, the dynamics, the values? Business capabilities, business architecture. Experience. What are the layers of experiences and journey maps that exist within an organization to create the experience that the customer sees from the outside? Product and services. What products and services are there, and what services what, and how do we cross-sell, and what does the bundle look like? Brand. What's the brand architecture? Who are your target avatars? What do they want? What is their pain point? Which ties in really well with experience architecture and products and services. Governance. What does our governance structure look like? The structure process, of course. Process is another way of looking at architecture. And so much more. Guess what I'm trying to say here is that we're not confined to thinking about architecture in the traditional mainstream way that we've got those 5 different architecture types. There's a lot more than that, 5 or 6. There's a lot more than that, in the sense that if we were to really create a map for the organization and try to understand it from an ecosystem point of view and as a blueprint, then there are different aspects and different layers, like that X-ray scan, MRI scan of that brain, the different parts that all constitutes that one ecosystem. Now, let me switch gear and talk a little bit about transformation, because then we're going to try to bring them together. After 25 years of working in change and transformation, seeing the good, the bad, the ugly, the extremely ugly, I came to realize that any transformation will do these 3 things if it was to do a proper change and transformation program. And I'll explain it. And these 3 goes like this, hand in hand, like a 3-legged stool. If you lose 1, not stable, 2, you're going to fall. You get the point. First one is focus. What are we actually trying to get here in the transformation? Where are we focusing? And then capabilities. What are the muscles the abilities in the organization that we're trying to build in order to make that thing we're trying to do and the focus actually sustained, adopted, and we can build on top of. And what's the purpose? Who are we as an organization? Because any change and transformation program needs to link back to that bigger purpose. Now, let me have a second round and explain that in a different narrative. Focus is we want to do this so that we can do it faster and better by the capability which sustains it and build on top of, so that we have this purpose happening. And the purpose of the organization, of course, is not just a direct relationship one-on-one with one transformation. Obviously, there's a few, plus BAU, plus operations, plus critical activities. Another way of explaining it, let's talk about something that you hear a lot of, which is what is really focus? Focus are those things that you're very familiar with. Experience, as in customer experience, people and culture, governance and compliance, technology enablement. And I'm saying enablement deliberately because technology just by itself is like, what are we using the technology for? So technology enablement on operational efficiency. Capability is something like agility. This is a muscle that goes underneath. Ways of working, innovation, process improvement, decision-making, product development, R&D, so that the purpose is, we want to be number one in, or we want to be seen by our customers as, or we want to be the market leader in, or we want to be the XYZ of choice in what. Now, let me take that further and layer it with two very important layers. The layer that you see here, the circle, is where transformation lives. So yes, we're doing this focus by applying this capability or working on improving or creating, building this capability so that we can reach that purpose. But second layer, we need to be very clear on our outcome. What are we actually trying to achieve in this transformation? We'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Success. What does success look like? And the change roadmap. How are we going to make that change happen so that we actually have adopted the change? Now, all of this can go up in the air if they're not pinned by alignment here. Psychological safety and courage, and that's particularly important in transformation and change. Why? Because we're changing. We're changing the status quo. We're changing the comfort zone. There's so many things that go when you're trying to do that. Discussion for another day. Experience and expertise, the mastery level, the understanding, how really do we really know what good looks like on how to implement this change and transformation? This is the experience and the expertise of the team behind the change and transformation. And obviously, leadership, the quality of the decisions they make, the proactivity, their creativity, their ability to ensure that they're saying comfortably no as much as they're comfortably yes, we want to do more. Now, let me try, so we talked a little bit about transformation, talked a little bit about how I see architecture. Now let's bring it all together at a high level. What does the world look like when it comes to transformation? We start with a purpose. That's the purpose of the organization. How do we want to be perceived by the customers? And then they go to offsites and strategy sessions, come up with the strategy. Then we come up with strategy objectives, translate that into outcome, define what success look like. What are the lens that we're trying to take? So now we're dropping it down to the level of transformation, change, large programs. What are the capabilities do we need to build in the organization? What is the architecture? Like, what's that map? Like, I know where I want to go. It's territory that I don't know about. Okay, what's the map? Like, how do I go? That's the GPS version for the organization. And then the work, we're very familiar with the work streams, the tasks, the Gantt charts, the timelines, the meetings, the forums, the workshops, and then the learning. What we've learned and then close that loop back to strategy and so on and so forth. Now, of course, seeing this as like, yeah, I wish. In many change and transformation programs that I worked with, many of these items are not even there or not clear. So let's look at the red text that I have there on the left. Common pitfalls. Purpose, which is that thing we talked about. Remember those 3 circles? I want to be number 1 in. Unfortunately, it gets mistaken for the outcome. How many transformation programs have been, the outcome of this transformation program has become the number 1. It's just way up there. Like, yeah, number 1, when, where, how, to whom, in what way? Strategic objectives are sometimes solution dictating. They're not really giving you direction. They're telling you, I want this, go do it. Or it becomes a wish list where it's kind of like there's too many things on the table here. Outcome, very vague or up for interpretation. If I ask 3 people in a transformation program, what do you think the outcome of this transformation is, and they give me 3 different answers, you pretty much know where your transformation is going to end. Success. If it's done in the right way, success should not be a solo single dimension only. Increase NPS score by blah, cost save by this, or increase turnaround time by that, or reduce turnaround time by that. That's just one small part of success. There is a 360 view of success, which is what I'm going to talk about in the next slide. Too many lenses in the lens. So how many programs, and I pretty much can't see you, but I know that you're going to all put your hands up. How many transformation change programs where there are way too many things to focus on? There is a people culture aspect, equally important to the customer experience, equally important to having AI capabilities, but equally important to doing organizational design, and very equally important to automating your process, and very equally important to documenting all of your processes and putting it on X system. And too many lenses becomes more of like a laundry list. And they're all equally important. We need to do all of that. Capabilities. Hardly ever talked about, except for the transformation programs and the leaders who are aware of business architecture and the need to build capabilities and muscles within the organization. Architecture is project driven. They're not involved at that upper part. Kind of like assume what the solution is and just go pick from my knowledge base the diagram for this and this and these systems and this data and this warehouse data and this, that. It becomes very solution oriented. Pretty much like that's the way we're going there. And then the work, that's where most of the effort goes in. And then the learning is hardly ever done properly. It's kind of more like lessons learned and they're stored somewhere, collecting dust. I've divided these into 3 different layers. The first one here is direction. And you can see here that it's purpose, strategic objective, outcome, and success. And then we understand. And that's coming from a mindset that I always love to have to guarantee or to increase the probability of your change and transformation success, which is sharpening the saw before cutting the tree. Usually what happens in many change transformation programs is that we get some direction and then we jump straight into design. That's the solution, go. We don't spend enough time in understanding. And the time ends up being the same. You took the time to understand and sharpen the saw before cutting the tree, or just go straight to cutting the tree with a kitchen knife. The time is the same. Understand, and you can see there is an overlap where defining success is part of defining direction, but it's also important to understand where we're going. And that includes lenses and capabilities and architecture. And then architecture is also used not just to understand, but also help give me options. Where do I go now? In architecture, in that bigger sense that I just discussed. And then the work, and then the learning. All of them leads to change adoption. The two interesting parts here is success and architecture, because success has two folds. It helps define the direction, but also helps us understand the landscape. And architecture helps us understand the landscape, but also helps in the design and the execution side of things. All right. Before I go and tell you what I've done in my that transformation program that I've done, remember I talked before in the previous slide about success and why it's single dimension? To me, success has to be 360 view, meaning I'm not going to go through each and every one of these. It's just more to give you an understanding from my perspective of how I see success. Success, you need to define success in terms of your people. What does that success look like? Culture, capability, capacity building, performance. 90%, and I'm only saying 90% subjectively because it might be even more, transformation change programs just focus on that one lens of performance. Turnaround time, cost saving, financial performance, throughput, adopting certain technology. Risk levels is another way to also articulate your success measures from that lens. Experience, customer experience, people experience. We're talking about the holistic view of customers and people. Market leadership. Scalability is part of your success as well. Intelligence, diversification, capability, maturity, creating a modular business. And that, of course, very much depends on the maturity of the organization. Agility. Are we actually making the next change faster and better? What does success look like in terms of our agility, change adoption, enablement, business capability building, and simplification? We certainly don't want to leave the organization after our transformation a more complex place than what it was. Let's look at it. Outside in, reduce the total cost of ownership, any automation opportunities, reducing complexity, simplifying process. I talk about this explicitly, like it's going to take a lot longer to explain everything. However, for the context of this presentation, I'm mentioning it just to ensure that there's this understanding that there's a 360 view of success, and we're going to use that in the case study coming up. All right. That was the World Cup transformation program. I was responsible for a big chunk of that, about $700 million. And the main lens, focus lens for that particular transformation program was customer experience led. So when you know that, as a transformation leader, you'd be sitting there like, where do I start from? Is it journey map? Let's look at our systems. Maybe just look at the process, maybe. Where do we go? Like, how do we orchestrate that architecture to help drive that transformation design? The steps are step zero is the foundation. Clarity on strategic objectives, outcome, and defining success. And I know many of you are like, yeah, I wish we had that clarity. But yes, you absolutely need it, because the cost of not having this clear, forget about steps 1 to 5. If you're not clear enough, I mean, it's never going to be 100% because it's an ever evolving. You need to make sure that you've got clear strategic objectives that then lead to outcome, that then have a success, defining success and what good looks like from a 360 view, using that wheel that I just said. That's why I put the wheel there. Step 1, focus lens. Now, what's the focus lens that I'm talking about in this transformation was experience led. Okay, meaning I'm going to focus on certain architecture, certain layers, views. CX, customer experience, brand. In that particular example, there was brand, but in your case, it may not be applicable. Product and services architecture. With the view of what do we have now, and how do we make sure that the to-be view is going to align to the outcome and defining of success. You can see here every step has a check, and every check is the same, but it's for that specific step. So what's success look like? Is it linked to outcome? That outcome. Is it linked to the overall success definition? Done with step 1, moving on to step 2. What is needed for step 1 to happen? What is needed for step one to happen? It's absolutely essential. We can't have the customer move from this journey step to that journey step without doing blah. So now we're talking about what's absolutely a necessity to make that happen. And if you run out of ideas, look at the success wheel that we just described there for ideas. But what else is core to make step one actually happen? And once you have that, validate it with the customer experience team, because they are the focus lens. They become core to this transformation program. They're not just sitting on the side doing journey maps. They are core because that is the focus lens of this transformation program. And then do the check again. What does success look like for these? Is it linked to the outcome? Linked to the overall definition of success? Step 3, decisions. What decisions need to make step 2 happen? So step 2 was the core. So what decisions make step 2, all these core items that you've collected, happen? And I'm looking at conditions of success, and I'm looking at the actual decisions that need to be made. I'm looking at maybe forums, approvals, licenses. There was, in this specific program that I was managing, there was an unbelievable number of licenses and government approvals that is required to do many of the stuff. People, roles, delegated levels of authority, all that. Do your check. Step 4. What enables step 2 to happen? This is more of like guiding, making it simpler, putting some boundaries around it, clarifies it, automates it, informs it. This is policy, guidelines, stuff like that. Again, do your check. Step 5, accelerator. Now, in this specific situation, accelerators was something that we needed to look at. However, in your organization, this may not be the case. So that's why I put an asterisk there. It's optional. What can be done to accelerate 2, 3, and 4? Having a future look. What can actually be done? Not just to make it faster. I don't want accelerate equals faster. No, it's actually make it faster and better, because sometimes speed just by itself is not good. So how to make it faster and better? Again, do your checks. Now, what do we do? Now I've got a lot of stuff. This is like having, you know, when you have your GPS and it has different layers, like there's the road layer, there's other layers which show you where the streets are, the mountains, and then there's another layer of the traffic, how busy it is, or the traffic jams and stuff. It's the same thing. So now we've collected data. This is all part of understanding, coming at it from focus lens. What's core to that focus lens? What are the decisions that enable that core stuff to happen? What enables the core stuff to happen? And what can accelerate 2, 3, and 4? You ended up with a collection of stuff. Okay, now where to go from there? By the way, in this transformation program, there were so many lenses that were suggested to us. Like there was a capability, there was technology, heavy technology, pretty much removing and adding lots of systems, data, all that kind of stuff, which is great. But you know where that ends. It kind of leads you to the solution already. We're doing IBM Maximo, and this is the data, and these are the reports that the business assume they want, and I didn't want to take that approach, which is the traditional approach. I wanted to, the lens is customer experience. That's the most important to you. So I did some voting to find out what that focus lens is, and then took that. It doesn't discount the fact that we're still going to look at the other layers, but what is the ruling lens here? It's the customer experience. And then from that, it just helps focuses our attention. In a world of transformation and change, and pretty much every change now is complex anyway, where so many things can be done. And then with the pressure of time, we all know that we cut corners. We want to do the stuff that we're comfortable with. We go straight to the tangibles, and we end up cutting the tree with the kitchen knife. And then it takes longer. We can't really deliver on the outcome fully because we still need a phase 2 and a 3, and you know the whole thing. I digress. So now you've got the stuff that you've done, steps 0 to 5, you've got mainly two pieces here, two very important pieces of information. One is all your checks that you've done. What does success look like? Is it lined up to the outcome? Is it really success 360? And then you've got all your architectural work. One important question that I get asked, what if I don't have that architecture itself, like brand or market or products and services? We didn't have that. We actually also had to look at initiatives architecture. What's happening else in the organization? That's fine. We're not gonna boil the ocean here. 2 workshops, post-it notes, collaboration tool. We've got enough information that it informs that architecture. So it doesn't have to be complicated. So I got 2 pieces of information here, all the checks that you've done and everything from step 1 and 5. Now, what do you do with the checks? The checks becomes your guiding rails to ensure that your transformation is a success, because it gives you the design principles. These are the things, the few things that this is what I'm going to adhere to in order to make this a success. One example of a design principle that came from this whole thing: data. Customers, and potentially what can go wrong, which we'll talk about. We created a design principle, myself and the team, that data will only be entered once. There's not going to be many multiple data entry points. There is not going to be customers falling into the crack of repeating the same thing over and over and over again. Nope, that's a design principle. Which meant that when assets data, because it was an asset management transformation as one part of it, whoever enters it, whether it's headquarters, whether it's a consultant, whether it's a vendor, whatever it is, it's just going to be entered once, which means, and it's going to be reusable across all the use cases where that data can be used. That's how it starts to translate at a deeper level. Success measures. What does success look like? Now you can even put even more meat on the bone on that success wheel. Now it's starting to evolve, and you start to create themes around it. But you're also very aware of what can go wrong. This is going to be quite important, obviously, in the governance side of things. Steps 1 and 5, you've got your focus lens, the core, the deliverables or the thinking that you've got from the core, the decisions, the enablers, the accelerators, which constitutes, that's the work. These are the ingredients. So now I know what the ingredients are. As a transformation leader, I don't know yet how am I going to structure them and who goes what first. I don't know yet, but I've got the ingredients and I can see them. That's the ingredients. It's not everything under the sun. These are the ingredients. Capabilities. What capabilities do I need to sustain that change? And that's where business architecture plays a big role. Even if you don't want to call it business architecture, this is the muscles in the organization that we need in order to sustain this change, but also creates a good, solid platform for the next change to go faster and better. The third step is validate alignment and purpose. Remember those 3 circles that I had? Focus, capability, purpose. This is an optional step to ensure that there is still a line of sight, a clear line of sight. It might give you still few gaps to go back and, rehearse or add a little bit meat on the bone when it comes to steps 1 and 5. Is it still aligned to the overall bigger picture of the organization and how the organization itself wants to be perceived? This is beyond the transformation, its own outcome. This is for the whole organization. And sometimes it's shifting gears and thinking this way. Yeah, it's a few things that we can add, which puts a little bit more details to steps 1 and 5. Now you've got these 2. Now where to go from there? Remember, we said that we've got the ingredients. Now we take all these ingredients and we start sequencing and structuring the work to drive options. You can do them you can do these 3 here, you can do them in parallel. Assess the capabilities and see what is the target maturity that I want to reach in that capability. How big is the gap? And is it realistic? Sometimes we want to go from, we've got nothing, all manual, to that's it, we're fully automated, single sign-on, portals, self-service, but doesn't work because the capabilities are just a big, steep curve, and it was not realistic for this transformation to make it happen. And now that you know what your ingredients are, you know whom you need in the transformation, from business stakeholders, consultants, because now you know what ingredients, what's the stuff that we need to work on. Notice in all of this, I did not mention the word solution once. Not yet. I know I need to cut the tree, but I don't know how yet. But now I know everything. What's the tree, the soil, the tools that I have, who do I need, what houses are there so it doesn't fall on their houses when I cut the tree. Power lines, I know everything. I know the landscape. I took all the MRI scans and the x-rays. Now let's find out what the options are so we can then go to solution, so we can then go to execution. That's probably the longest I've ever talked in one shot. And that's it from me. I hope this was helpful. Just to wrap it up, to give you, again, just what did I talk about? It was architecture and expanding that view of a perspective of the architecture from the mainstream architecture to these are actually layers of understanding, canvases of thinking. What is available to me? Look at the 30,000 foot view of what is in the world of change and transformation, and where architecture fits in. We also talked about the different lenses of transformation, that it's about focusing, but also capabilities, but also purpose, underpinned by everything here. That's the 30,000 foot view and where it fits in. Very important, the 360 view of success, and then the steps of how to get to, I have the ingredients now, I've got a good understanding of what success looks like, and then move on to options so you can then become solutions, so you can then execute. Thank you. Daryl, you still here?
Yeah, sorry, just having a little trouble with my microphone controls. Oh, good. Jess, we've lost your video again. Did you want to try and turn your video back on? We can have a bit of a chat and answer some questions.
Say that again, sorry?
I've lost your video feed again. Can you try and turn your video on and then we can have a chat and answer some questions? Great.
Cool.
Now, do you think you'll refer back to the slides perhaps during the questions? In which case, we'll leave that screen share up. All right. And,
is it still there?
Okay,
is it still sharing?
It is still sharing. Yep. All good. So there's a question about, you mentioned early on in the piece, a knowledge base. And, and do you have any advice on building the knowledge base? So both from a quantity perspective and also the approach and the types of people that might be involved in building up that knowledge?
First, I would have to say that this is a journey, not a sprint. You start wherever you can. There is no right or wrong in terms of where you want to start. I think it's more the intention of starting to build a knowledge base. Now, why is a knowledge base absolutely critical in driving success for change and transformation? It's like really a surgeon that you're going to a surgeon for a big surgery and you've lost all your medical history. You don't have x-rays, you don't have blood work. I don't know why the camera keeps turning off. You don't have any of that. So we're going to have to do the whole thing again. But you lose the trend because it's all like a snapshot of now. But I don't know how you've been trending across the years, and it affects the decision making. To me, knowledge base is the same as that. When you're going to do change and transformation, by the way, it just turns off by itself. It's not me. When you're doing change and transformation, you need to see as much data points as you can. And that's not just referring to actual data points, but actually referring to turning this data into information, to knowledge through that knowledge base. I found that the best thing to do is to build architectural capabilities. Business architecture is definitely one. I am always very happy when I go into an organization doing change and transformation and see capability maps, the different perspectives and all that. So that's great. you start from wherever you are. And I think the driver for building it comes from change and transformation. If there isn't enough, like the company is not really doing a lot of, change and transformation work, which let's put the transformation aside, any change work or any project work, which is highly unlikely in this day and age, then it becomes about the architecture team who is sitting in the BAU function to go and scan the environment and start building those layers. Just being mindful, we don't want to go in one area and go really deep without building what's next to it, because that can drive, oh, we need to fix this, we need to fix that, we need to fix this, and then it just creates a silo because you're just focused on one aspect of the organization. Let's say you're doing just finance, and then you let everything else fall out the window. So it's kind of that balanced approach as well.
That's a very good point. Maybe we stop the sharing, Jess, and maybe it'll fix up this video problem. It keep disappearing on me.
And we can, I don't know what's going on here, but
hopefully that stays there. That's good. We can definitely have a chat about the material you've been sharing. I'm thinking about the other parts of the organisation, the other disciplines in the organisation that you have to work with. Oh, it's doing it again. That is odd.
It's doing it again. So I'm just going to have to put my mouse on that button there.
All right, that's good. Yeah, so working with other disciplines within the organisation to enable effective transformation, in that sense that, it takes a village to raise a child, sort of thing. What are your thoughts on who you need to work with, who are your key people you need to work with in transformation?
Who are the key people that you got cut off there for a second?
Yeah, who are the key people? Who are the other key, I guess, roles that you need to work with in an effective transformation?
That's a very good question, because my answer is it depends. What is the focus lens of that transformation? Traditionally speaking, if I'm just looking at it from the school of thought of project management, you just build the stakeholder map and this is everybody. However, in transformation, we don't want to boil the ocean because it's not just one focused project, it's big. So you end up involving everybody and you don't want to involve everybody, especially at the beginning. In terms of people that you want to work with, it really very much depends on the focus lens. So in this particular example, as a transformation leader myself, working with a handful of architects, business analysts, business stakeholders that are going to help me build that map from the lens of customer experience. So I needed marketing people. I needed to listen to the customer voice. I needed customer experience. I needed service design to start with. I did not involve any architects or any systems at this stage. I just wanted to understand that landscape. So it very much depends on where you're going in terms of that focus lens. Once you move to the next step, then you involve more people. And once you involve next step, you involve the next set of people. In a general sense, the people that you absolutely need in a transformation, and without putting any titles on them, are the people who are going to be able to make the right decisions at the right mindset. But also it's for you as a transformation leader to know exactly who do you need by all the ingredients that you have, because we've developed that from steps 1 to 5. You have the ingredients, so you know who do you need in terms of that transformation program. And another one caveat to that, there is no in scope, out of scope when it comes to change and transformation. There is, but there isn't. If something needs to be done to get the outcome to be delivered, then that person, that function, that role needs to come in. And then we see how do we make it happen. It's not like, no, that's not my job. That's it. That's what they told me here to do. I'm not doing that part. I'm not involving that people. That's some other project somewhere. So yeah, long answer is just to give you different perspectives. And I think the method that I shared about step 0 to 5 gives you a very good understanding of who do you need, because you're developing what layer at a time. This video thing is becoming annoying. I'm just going to try.
Yes, I feel like it's trying to figure out whether or not your video is of high quality or not, and it keeps cutting you out. It's very, very frustrating.
Yeah.
The related question, I guess, to that is when? When do you engage all of these other people in the organisation, the other disciplines that you need?
If I was to take that steps, I don't want to do the share now because it's probably going to worsen the video situation. That steps 0 to 5 to 6. Is it 6? 5. If I was to double click in each one of those steps, there is the people behind it that you need. So in focus steps, in focus lens, I need customer experience. I need the voice of the customer. I need those who are dealing with the customer. They've got a touch point with the customer. Next step is core. By just looking at what is needed, I know whether that's more heavily operation or heavily somewhere else. Then I need to involve that. Enablers will be more the supporting functions, HR, legal, governance, risk. Decisions will be probably leadership, anybody involved in audit, due diligence, and stuff like that. So every step there is behind it, there is the team that needs to be involved. But once we put everything together, now we are no longer, so that transformation program, 700 million transformation program, before I moved to the ingredients and the sequencing and forming the transformation team, we were only 7 people. Only 7 people. So it's not to get an army to start with, because everybody has their own opinion, they want direction, they will have a saying. It was just 7 people. And then it grew from 7 people to 127 people, but gradually, because we know exactly who do we need. It's like being in a kitchen, you know, like I just need 2 people to design the menu. And then now I need more people to get the material, the beef, the chicken, And then I need more people to do the cutting. And then I need more people to do this. And then I need the waitress. I don't need the waitress to start with me day one. Now, I don't need the restaurant manager yet, maybe to consult at the beginning, but now I need them when I'm actually doing the service, and so on and so forth. It's similar to that. I think that structure from steps 0 to 1, there is a team behind it. And just to give an example, that transformation, the 700 million transformation program, that whole steps 0 to 5 was just 7 people.
That's interesting. Yeah. And I'll take your point on it's not designed by committee. You can't have everybody having a voice in every decision. So understanding your roles and responsibilities is important. This comes up a lot in conversations that I have around transformation, where there's a perception that the transformation is this fixed duration thing, and then it's finished and you've transformed. What's your take on that perception?
Twofold. Of course, there needs to be some kind of end date. All right. So, you know, the leaders and the board and those who are paying the money don't get too anxious. It's like, when am I get the car? You'll get it someday. No, you don't want that answer. You got to put a date. But the date is for when to go live. There is another dimension of transformation about building that knowledge base, the change adoption, and the learning. That last box that I had there, the 3,000 foot view. This is stuff that goes on. It doesn't end. So there is an element of it that continues, and then it feeds back to strategy, and then it feeds the whole thing again. I find the whole thinking about a project with a start and end it doesn't really work in the mindset of change and transformation, because there's a lot of elements to it that just exist. They just need to be there all the time. However, there are some deadlines. Of course, there has to be dates on some of the deliverables, but there are things that are more capability related that just continues to stay. And it helps shape up the next cycle, the next change and transformation, the next strategy cycle. Now that we've learned what has been adopted, what's not, what we've done, how can I make my organization faster and better by giving them a better outcome, a better purpose, a better strategic objective? So it's kind of twofold to that.
It sort of reminds me a little bit of the book, The Fifth Discipline, around the learning organization and the sort of systems thinking approach to things. And you make a good point that the strategy might have defined the need for a transformation program, but then the transformation program might spit out some inputs into the strategy. So it becomes
absolutely, it happens all the time. Yes, absolutely, happens all the time. This particular transformation that I was in, because it was the World Cup, it was a huge portfolio before and after my times. In that whole change and transformation. So they've had this 5-year plan, and after we've done the few core transformations, one of them was mine. That rest of the plan completely changed, because now we learn more. We know more about how do we do things around here, what is accepted, what is easier to be adopted, what are the capabilities that we've built, how the capabilities shape themselves up. We can talk from here to end of times about theoretically what a capability should look like, but once the rubber meets the road and you're actually doing it, that's actually a creation now in the organization that you have to take into account, which the strategy back then did not know about. So that strategy loop, feedback loop, is absolutely critical. And it doesn't just come from change and transformation. It also comes from critical activities within the organization, the market, and the BAU functions, of course.
It feels like that word change is really important, because you're building the, you're using change as a mechanism, but you're also building the ability to change in the future.
Yes, yes, it's always about building that muscle. It's like I like, I like to use metaphors a lot. You go to the gym, you're doing the work, diet-wise, exercise-wise, mobility, balance, stretching, strength, da, 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 da. But is that really what you're doing? Like, that's it? Like, you're just going there, drive, go, do the stuff, come back, have a shower, you're done? Is that it really? No, it's not. You're building your muscles. You're building your health. And you might get injured. You might use the wrong muscle, so you end up not having a balanced way of doing things. You might too much strength, but not enough flexibility, mobility. So you need to change your regime, or you need to change how you do things around the gym. Maybe you need a personal trainer. So it's just a full ecosystem. And I think this whole change and transformation, I mean, we're definitely in a better state than when we were 10 years ago. This whole project box is that worked back then, but it doesn't work, that whole thinking of a project, like just tasks, Gantt chart, tick, 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 done, out scope, in scope, change requests, that's it, finished. I think we've evolved way beyond that. And sometimes that way of thinking, that mindset, can actually get in the way of us thinking about what do we deliver, but what continues. That whole, it's like we're really building an ecosystem around change. And I like what you mentioned about, we're changing, but we're also evolving the way we change. And if I was to summarize any change and transformation program in the world, and I don't care what it is, it's really sole purpose, really, really sole purpose, like a universal kind of truth. It's to make the next change faster and better. Because if it doesn't, then why did it exist in the first place?
Yep, that's a great point. And we've run to the hour. Jess, thank you so much for spending some time with us today and being part of WIA Takes Over Built, and this crazy thing that runs across the globe. And because we're well into the Australian section of the conference now as well, and it's great that she could lead us off, and got a bunch of other Australian speakers coming up as well, so looking forward to those. But tremendous, Jess, thank you. So much to learn, and I hope many people reach out to you and continue the learning process, because I know you've got a lot to share.
Great, and thank you very much, Daryl. And this conference has been really amazing, and I want to make a special thanks to Wendy, who actually encouraged me to apply to speak. So thank you, Wendy. And yeah, anybody who feels like they want to just have a chat, share more about this, if they want to apply it in their change and transformation program, use me as a sounding board. Totally open to making it faster and better for everybody.
Great. Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. You have a good day.